We are live. Yep. Hey, everybody. Tara Bachland here with the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism. Here to my left or right? Nope, to my left, apparently on screen, is the one and only Matthew Wood, and our colleagues as well, Lee Arnoldi and Alberto Carbo. And we're very happy today to be sharing with you Herb Talks. And these we broadcast occasionally. So you get a sneak peek, a behind the scenes at some of our classes. And this is one of our Materia Medica classes that we're recording. We are wrapping up the last bits of first year curriculum and cruising ahead on second year curriculum. So what does that mean to you? Well, those of you who study with us at the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism just means that we've got more and more terrific content here for you to enjoy. And also including our curricula. So that means we have full first year program, and on the heels of that, a full second year program coming along. Hey, those of you who are with me, is this showing me scrolling the page?
Yeah, it is.
Great, thank you. So at the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism, we always have new classes coming up. These are classes that are going into our curriculum, and upcoming is Herbs for the Kidney and Bladder. Something I like to point out is there are so many ailments connected to the kidneys and bladder, the kidneys especially, that you may have no idea that are connected. For example, just your bones, joints, stamina, if you're feeling exhausted. Of course, leaking, we understand, connected with the bladder, but also cleansing the body is an important role for the kidneys as well. And so if you know or you're suspecting you might have issues going on with the kidneys or bladder, or just want to learn more, this is a terrific class to join with Matthew Wood and Phyllis D. Light. I'm not going to say too much about it because you can also find out all the details at the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism. But something that I'd like to point out is that we have a new purchase option at the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism, and that is to help people who want to just kind of enter and dabble a little bit and see if it's right for them. And that is for the access to the live online webinar, Q&A during the class, and then a 7-day access to the class recording. And so it does not include online Q&A, handouts, testing. Again, this is just so you can kind of dip your toes in, see, is this right for me at a lower price? But the point is also, with this purchase, you get a coupon to apply that entire purchase price for the full course. And so that means when the full course is assembled, which will be shortly after, it will have the video recordings, because this is multiple classes. It will also have handout materials or documents. It will have testing and also the option to test out and get a certificate, all included in one price. And so with this purchase price, you'll be able to apply the full amount to the full course if that's what you would like to do. Otherwise, if you're like, nope, I dipped my toes in, that was good, that was enough, no problem, you can just stick with that. Something to mention also is an upcoming series of classes on the female reproductive system. And the reason we put these back to back is they actually are connected literally and figuratively in a number of ways. And the health and strength of your kidneys, especially, do really influence how the female reproductive system is behaving, so to speak, as well. And so this is a series of upcoming classes. You can pick and choose which one you want to join or get the bundle. There are 6 classes, and we start with overview of heritage, hormones, tissues, and stress, moving on to menstruation and various topics in the epochs of the female reproductive system life. And again, you can join all 6 for the price of 4, or you can just opt into each one that interests you most. And again, the same pricing structure. You can just dip your toes in for a very easy entry point, or later, if you would like to purchase the full access version, this purchase price can be applied to that. So only benefits here. We're striving to provide you with the most that we can at the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism. We always have amazing free classes coming up. And amazing offerings. So rather than keeping on going and going, I do have to mention one more thing, though. Absolutely download these free Materia Medica cards. These are the latest work by Matthew Wood. And so they're even more updated than his books. And so Absolutely free. Just go to the MatthewWoodInstituteofHerbalism.com, get the free set of Materia Medica cards, and they're an absolutely amazing, amazing resource. For there are 52 herbs, get into the energetics, all the goodies that you want to learn and do learn with the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism and Matthew Wood. I could go on and on. There's so many amazing things here, but just check out the site and you can see all the amazing things that are offered. So, without further ado, let's head into, oops, wrong screen. Let's head into the um, the topic of the hour, which is herb talks with Matthew Wood. And as you see, we have colleagues joining us today. We're going to chime in and lend our expertise as well with these herbs. And a few of them, some of you have already seen with me and Alberto in Herbs and Spanglish. So we're going to get started. Did you hear?
That was Catlish, not Spanglish. What's going on
Yes,
over there?
it was. Someone let her out of her room. So we're gonna have to deal with little Missy here. So today's herb talk is, I'll just run through them real quick. We'll get into them in detail. Turmeric, ginger, garlic, and thyme. And we're gonna make sure we have time for thyme because that's necessary. So this is a Materia Medica class, so we're learning about the herbs, what their constituents are, what they're used for, all sorts of goodies when it comes to Materia Medica. So, Matt, would you like to get us started, or should we just
Yeah.
dive right into turmeric?
Well, I think even the most beginner student could see that we are concentrating on very, very warming, hot herbs, and they all are really warming in different degrees, and they're warming enough. Most of them are drying, I would say. Wow, dried ginger is extremely hot, and garlic we could say is a little bit moistening, but otherwise they're all pretty much heating and drying. So that's kind of our theme here, and we have all these people together because these are not all my strong points. I got to apologize a little bit. I tend not to study the really strong, powerful herbs like this. And so they kind of lasted till the end of our class. So I'm just giving an apology here. These are not my strong points. And I tried to get Judy Liebland to help us, but she was so busy. So next best, we have our staff who are quite experienced with these herbs too. So we're gonna fill in each other's gaps, and we'll talk about these herbs in considerable depth here. And there will be handouts. There already is one on ginger. There will be one on turmeric because I have it unorganized in my notes here, and another one on garlic, and thyme is already in my book, and probably garlic is too. Okay, so turmeric, and this is particularly known as an Ayurvedic herb, and it's interesting because it's said to balance Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, and that means not just three constitutions, which would be the thin, the medium, and the thick, but also three areas of the body, because kapha is kind of the damp parts, and nervous system is vata, pitta, the fire, that is the circulation, the metabolism, and kapha, more the digestion and the big organs, etc. So it's actually um, balancing to the whole system as well. So that makes it a very powerful herb. It is known to be warming, and it has been introduced in Western, I call it commercial herbalism, herb commerce, both as an anti-inflammatory and as an anti-arthritic. Those are its most popular uses. It would be anti-inflammatory for disease, for conditions that need heating, not things that need cooling. And the cooling things we'd use, like linden flower and members of the rose family and yellow dock root and the fruits and the faux fruits, which are cooling. Guess what? Lemon, lime, etc. Herbs obey the laws of food, and common sense. The cooling herbs are cooling, and the warming foods like this are heating, and we use them as culinary as heating herbs as well. Okay, so that is what so it will balance those three, but it can aggravate pitta and vata. That is fire and fire and uh, dryness, and you can see why. You could just overuse it, and it would create a hot, dry condition. But you'd really have to be kind of irresponsible, kind of way beyond. You'd have to be not paying attention to what you were doing to use that much turmeric. You don't want to like stress people out. You don't want to use it beyond where taste is involved. I had a comment today on email. Someone I was helping, just to give an example, blue vervain for very harsh cough. Actually, it was COVID in children, and oh no, it was mycoplasma from like a Lyme co-infection, and she said, "Well, I can't get the kids to eat it except to drink it in grape juice, which is like a great idea that like fit that herb perfectly." I said, "Yeah, go ahead. That's how you want to do it. This herb is so terrible tasting, you just can't. Nobody can have it in a large dose. Not an adult or a kid. Any adult trying to scarf that down in a large dose is they're not going to benefit from it. They might, except in their ego. Look at me." But it's the same thing with something like turmeric or ginger or even garlic. Like you just, it's not. It's the idea is not to out eat the thing compared to the rest of the world. It's to get a nice balanced amount. So in larger doses, it could aggravate pitta and vata, too burning, too hot, and too dry. But that also lets us know that it's going to act on kapha nicely to get rid of dampness and cold. And what affects the joints? Um, Dampness and cold. I mean, that's why the word rheumatism means damp, rheuma. And it's an old fashioned word, but it was used because everybody was aware that damp, cold weather produces this joint, if not stiffness and actual arthritis, at least soreness and discomfort. So, also in Ayurvedic, we're just going over it. This comes from the Ayurvedic tradition, so I'm doing that first. And it particularly is beneficial for Rasa and Rakta dhatus. They have um, seven tissues, and that's blood and plasma. So that tells us that it's acting well. The tissues do not include the circulation because that's not a tissue, but here are the substances that are circulated. So we get the idea something this hot is going to increase circulation, and that's going to put more blood and plasma into the corners of the economy of the body and move it around. Too much in the brain, it's going to move that down. Too much in the feet, going to move it up. High blood, low blood. Too much in the around the heart, congesting, it's going to move it out to the center, which means it's going to be, what would you say, preventative for heart disease. We can't say it's going to cure it, but it's going to help the circulation regulate as long as you don't use too much. So we want a good, even circulation. And as we get older, we tend to have high blood or low blood. That is too much blood to the head or too much to the feet. Also, it kindles the fire of the stomach, which is called Agni, which is actually um, a that means digestive metabolic fire. So that means it's really helping. It helps detoxify by really breaking down the um, the the food better. So that's an overview of the basic ancient traditional uses. Does anybody have more? I got lots more that I have written down here. Um, I don't have as much from experience, but some of my friends elsewhere, like Swanee Simon, I'm going to quote from her in Germany. Lots of good information. How about our friends here? Do you got more to add?
Yeah, I could add a couple things about the name, which are interesting.
Yeah.
So the name turmeric comes from the Latin terra merita, which means meritus earth, and this
Oh,
is referring to how ground turmeric resembles a mineral pigment. And so, that makes me think of nutrition, or bringing nutrition, or enabling you to pick up on nutrition from your food more easily. And as we know, it is a carminative, and it helps to stimulate digestion, which will stimulate absorption. And that's kind of like that earthy element that it brings. And then if we look at the Latin name curcuma, this came from the Perso-Arabic curcum, which was referring to saffron. And for a while, it was called Indian saffron because of the similarity in taste. They do taste differently, but that pungent bitterness similarity. And of course, we know saffron is also warming. I'll also add that in Sanskrit, there are at least 53 different names for turmeric. So that speaks to the how widely used it has been throughout history, where different peoples in different regions, even with the same language, have come up with different names, and perhaps different uses inspired the different names that came from Sanskrit.
Yeah, great. And to point out that beautiful yellow color in the earth. So the earth element is associated with the yellow color in Chinese medicine, and the earth is associated with the digestion in the middle. Whereas Ayurveda kind of puts the emphasis on the Agni, the fire in the belly, the fire in the digestion. Chinese medicine puts the emphasis on the earth, on the transformation of the food into our body, which they consider to associate with the earth. So that's fits in there too. That's pretty interesting. Yeah. Any further comments here? Lee.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I'll add that the look into the doctrine of signatures, which Lee is
Yes.
very well versed in. Our arthritis, of course, can happen anywhere in all the joints, but fingers, especially because we use our hands a lot, tend to be some of the most frequent places that people get arthritis in. And if you haven't, definitely take some turmeric and look at it. It looks like nubby fingers. It looks like finger joints or knuckles. I think it's fantastic how nature does that.
So that again is the emphasis on the peripheral circulation, bringing heat and blood out to and plasma, it turns out to the edges of the body. And that's going to help the joints too, because joints are actually not directly fed by the bloodstream. Like joints are encased in a cartilaginous in a synovial membrane, if nothing else. They're encased, and the blood is dropped off at the edge of that boundary line and diffuses through, and then diffuses through the joint. And the joint actually, the movement of the joints helps to circulate the materials that are dropped off at the edge of the joint. So there is no real circulation inside the joints themselves. And then at the other end, also in the same tissue, the same membrane, the veins are picking up, and probably lymphatic. I don't know this for sure, but I would assume the lymphatic capillaries as well. But the veins are picking up the debris from the joints. So the joints don't get their direct blood supply, and that means that we need to warm them up. We need to increase that circulation to the maximum. And turmeric clearly does that because it has such a reputation, not just for the fingers, but for all joints. And certainly that looks like joints in a general sort of way. That's going to include the spine, and all joints. And just to note, like comfrey, which is cooling, comfrey is an astringent and draws that material, draws the toxins through the joint when there's soreness and problems in there, and will draw out the debris, toxins. But it's not really that toxic, it's more like debris. So we have some options there. Also, we use the heating remedy roost tox from homeopathy the same way that we would use the turmeric to warm up the joints. And so we get a good picture there. Anything else? Lee, can you think of any additional signatures? Your intuition is always
Oh yeah.
way out past the rest of us.
Well, I often pick this up a little nubbin every week at like the co-op.
Yeah.
And every time I do, I'm like, wormy, wormy, worm, because that's exactly what it looks like to me.
Oh.
It looks like a larva. And it's so bitter, and it has that action of being anti-parasitic as well. But yeah, so that's it's like a little poem that goes through my head every time I shop for turmeric. I do just basically use it culinary. But after my dental surgery, that was actually one of the things they offered. They're like, hey, because I had such an angry set of nerves and gums. And of course, you take the arnica too, but they're like, hey, to get this inflammation down, we have turmeric that we can offer you as well. So that was something that was also provided. And that's, of course, just a confirmation of what we've talked about. But yeah, inflammation and worms.
Wow. Yeah. It's interesting. What's the other? So anti-parasitic. So in the tropics, I was told this by somebody who lived in the Congo for a while, and I've heard it from India too, that people just eat cayenne pepper every single day to make them sweat and to kill the worms. And I imagine that this has the same virtue and use in India. If you just take it every day, you keep your system clear of worms. And you can't really afford, when you're on a close to starvation diet, or at least you're kind of thin, you can't afford to have diarrhea. So there's a tip off, and I have here some of the indications for my friend Swanee Simon, who's a veterinary herbalist, human too, but veterinary herbalist in Saarland, Saar, in Germany. And she is a tremendous herbalist, really intuitive, like Lee here. And she was at one time one of my students, but I mean, I can't call somebody like that a student anymore. She's just so advanced in her knowledge. And she also has a winter house in Provence now. So anybody who wants to study with her, I would recommend, if you can find her in Saarland, Germany, or in Provence, another teacher in Provence, Christoph. Oh, geez, what's his last name? Well, he's kind of a major herbalist. He's in Provence as well. Christoph Bernard. Okay, so just advertising for Europeans, a few great herbalists there. All right, so Swanee said this is for digestion with weakness and inflammation. And why would that be? Of course, it's a stimulant. It's a circulatory stimulant, so it's going to be weakness where you want more digestion. You want more blood flow to strengthen the stomach and the intestines, and that is going to get rid of inflammation that's secondary to poor. We call it heat from cold. When there's, again, you don't want the fruits and the cooling remedies directly. You want something that stimulates to remove the toxins that are feeding the fire, basically, or even in very bad cases, and this has been used in cancer. So we would know very bad cases where there's a breakdown of the tissue. It's starting to break down, and this would help stimulate it, increase the blood circulation to the area. And so then it's also microbial, so bacteria, not to mention worms as well. So there's a really important picture there. It's kind of funny here. I haven't used this herb hardly at all, but I just know the logic of herbs, because once you know their properties, it all makes sense. So, and certainly the traditions, and all these people trying to use modern research only, it's like, and you'll never get it, because tradition is based on experience, and experience is the very best teacher of all. And okay, so She also says, this is really interesting, quote, when you are switching off a disgusting processed diet, this is a tremendous assist. Wow, that's really valuable. And, so how do we take it? We'll discuss that in a bit, but put it in your food. Certainly, it's not really a tea so much. Of course, you can take it various preparations, pills, capsules, tinctures, small doses, etc. It helps with this kind of transition, she says, and she's never seen a strong bad reaction to it. She must have seen a mild bad reaction, or that strength, that word wouldn't be in there. Warming digestive bitter, so it's a bitter which also gets the secretions going, although it's much more a stimulant than a bitter. Low stomach acid, there's that weakness again, sluggish digestion with low stomach acid. Well, with low stomach acid, you probably have all the way up to not even a lot of good secretion in the mouth. And there's two types of secretions here. One is that thicker mucus comes from under the tongue, and that lubricates the mouth, and the other from the parotids, or from the glands back here, that gives you the digestive enzymes, amylase, etc. But there's actually digestive markers in there that mark, let's say, carbohydrate, protein, oil. That starts digestion starts in the mouth. So you want good secretion, then it gets the stomach. You won't get good digestion of protein if you don't have good stomach acid, because that's just a major thing there. So you want to increase that. By the way, that's going to be with a pale tongue when you have low stomach acid. And yeah, with low stomach acid, you do benefit from acid foods because they help to provide acidity that you don't have until that can go online. So that's a bit of a surprise. And but at any rate, you'd have the paler tongue. Digestion and gallbladder sluggish, she adds. And okay, so the liver is a big deal here. Do you have more, you guys, you want to add at all with culinary uses? I think some of you have used it for culinary. Tara.
Yes, we have, and we discussed this a fair amount in Herbs and Spanglish as well. So if that sounds interesting to you, you can check out Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism YouTube. There are a lot of great videos and clips, and including full episodes of Herbs and Spanglish. So it's English and Spanish, just because if herbs weren't interesting enough, which they are by themselves. But Alberto and I discussed a fair amount about the cooking potential and properties of turmeric. And Alberto brought up in particular that the benefits are really are especially good when it's used over time. And so using turmeric in your cooking on a regular basis is actually very healthy and helpful in that way. And so, of course, we both discussed our love of using it in curries, of course, and that's just so very natural to use it in that way. Also, when my husband and I are juicing and juicing like vegetable juices, sort of juicing, we'll throw in just a little small piece, and just to get those good ingredients, right? Those good constituents. But also, so it's not too strong. It's definitely one of those ingredients. Some ingredients you can kind of like, it says a tablespoon. You're like, I really like it. I'm going to add a rounded tablespoon. I personally don't recommend that with turmeric. I found that out the hard way, and it takes a lot of diluting to bring that to homeostasis once again.
Good point.
I learned something interesting with Alberto also mentioned, and I'll let you take this one over, Alberto, that I hope I remember this correctly, that the fresh actually, rather than the tincture or other preparation, is that true? Was it the fresh or oh my gosh, I mixed it up now. Is it the fresh or the prepared that has more benefit to it's stronger, so to speak?
Yeah, what I talked about in Urban Spanglish was that turmeric is available now in concentrated powder. So it is much the active the curcumin, the active component, which has been associated with the reducing inflammation, is much more active or in higher quantities in the concentrated powder. So that is more of um, a use that would be for medicinal purposes, and you would do in a way that is measured, in a way with the recommendations of an herbalist or someone who would know how to the amount that you would need, and so that's used more in medicine, especially for people who are experiencing cancer, and they're using turmeric as a to help with inflammation and to help them through that journey. Um, However, as you pointed out, and we talked in Herbs and Spanglish, yeah, if you're just using it for general overall health, and you're someone who is not in experiencing a health crisis, then using it in small amounts in your food is, in my opinion, the best way. There's no need to go with extracted powders, and it's just more uh, day-to-day use, or prophylactic, if we want to use a medical term like that. Um, yeah, but some of my favorite ways to use it in the kitchen are for sure curries, all sorts of different curries. And if you've never made a curry before, it can seem daunting. It can seem sometimes they have a lot of ingredients, but just pick one and try it out. Pick a recipe rather and try it out, and then when you get used to it, change one ingredient or change a couple of ingredients and switch it up. And they're just so versatile like that you can switch up a couple things and you have a whole new different curry. As well, I like turmeric with honey, so you can infuse some honey with turmeric. Like Tara pointed out, a little bit does go a long way, so you don't want to put too much in your honey jar, but that's a nice way to kind of round out that pungent bitter taste that it has and make it more palatable. um, and I will also add that back kind of to the doctrine of signatures and where turmeric grows, it grows in India, so it's damp, it's hot, and especially turmeric loves the moist season. It grows through the monsoon season. So it does like very moist soil, which is interesting because, as Matthew pointed out earlier, it addresses the rheum or the dampness and cold in the body. So we have a solar herb, a hot herb that's growing in dampness, and that is exactly what it addresses in the body. So it's so interesting how time and again the nature just lets us know if we pay attention.
Nature treats herself. Yeah. I would say probably, I wouldn't use the powder except maybe like if you have cancer or something. We'll get to the use in cancer as an antioxidant, or you have maybe some severe breakdown of the mucosa of the intestines or something. Even then, I'm not sure for that direct exposure. I just don't see the logic of concentrating the powder and the curcumins for ordinary herbalism. As Swanee Simon said, use over a long time and look for slow improvement or just health maintenance. And actually, probably like ginger, which is one of its cousins, there's a big difference between the dry and the fresh. The fresh is not as piercingly hot as the dry powder. So you may just you remember that in cooking and so on. The fresh is milder. In the case of ginger, they have different properties, even that's market enough. Okay, and one thing about preparations that mostly people add 10% black pepper to turmeric because to help it get beyond through the gut wall, through the intestinal wall for absorption. This dramatically increases its absorbability. And so that's an important factor in using it. Now, fortunately, that fits right in with using it in culinary situations. So Also, curcumin or curcuminoids, the active ingredients, which are antioxidants. We have all sorts of antioxidants. We have antioxidants. Antioxidants means controls fire, basically, oxidation, weathering of your system. Well, weathering is aging, and we have antioxidants in cooling remedies like the fruity plants, and we have them in warming remedies like turmeric and many, many, many other plants. And actually, I would say that if nothing else, I mean, just so many. Well, so for instance, the famous antioxidants are blueberry and what's that other berry? Pomegranate. Those are cooling, but here we have warming. We may need warming antioxidants. Okay, now it does happen that curcumins are oil soluble, so another way to extract them is in coconut oil, and that is done too. But otherwise, they pick up well in teas, food, in consumption, etc. Okay, maybe another reason people put them in capsules, though, is to get that full food way of getting them. Okie doke, that's so. All right, now an important thing, not only do they act on the digestion, but right behind it on the well, probably on the pancreas, but definitely on the liver and gallbladder. So I have one of my students in Australia years ago filled me in. I don't have the name anymore, though. Might have been more than one student. Turmeric, I asked because I wasn't as good on this plant. Heat in the liver. Well, this must have been Natasha, I'm sure. Great herbalist in Canberra. Heat in the liver. And so again, we're going to have a liver that's too toxic in a way, that's seen a lot of abuse and all that bad food and processed food. Remember that Swanee said this would be a great remedy to reduce that. Well, that's where heat in the liver is going to come from, although it could also be from, well, even menopause, change of life when you're processing a lot of hormones, teenagerhood when you're processing a lot of hormones, although I use other things, but it's not likely. You're young, you got a strong liver, you'll make it through that time period. But if your liver's been damaged in middle age, you may need a stimulant like this. So heat in the liver, dose sensitive aggravations can cause nightmares, interestingly enough. So you're really stirring up the psyche, and in smaller doses that are appropriate, you're probably relaxing that nightmare mechanism, which is part of the instincts, part of the animal self, warning you about imbalances and things. Okay, so yeah, body smells of turmeric after a while. Okay, so that would be you're taking those large doses to get that. And they did say works for cancer, and a lot of people do say that. Swanee said as a tonic in cancer, so can be helpful without necessarily curing. But it also, there is a case history. I'll put it in the, there's an authenticated case history. It was in the Daily Mail, London newspaper, January 3rd, 2018. And it was a 67-year-old woman. The first case that was 5 years of grueling treatments of chemotherapy with a myeloma, spreading on the nerves, that would be. And she began taking 8 grams of curcumin, that's the concentration, a day. The cancer stabilized in what doctors say was the first case of its kind. That's really to be documented, not the first case of its kind. Her myeloma was spreading rapidly after 3 rounds of chemotherapy and 4 stem cell transplants. Holy cow. You're not going to get much benefit after the second one. Desperate, I guess. Okay, so wow. You can look that up, but it will be in, Ben Spencer is the author of that article. You can look it up too online. Okay, so, and the Australian herbalist said, yes, it does work. So now that was a severe case. So let's try it in moderate cases. Okay, also for age spots, that and acne pimples, I was wondering about that because anything that helps the liver is going to help with acne and pimples. That means it is going to be used with teenagers like that when you're young. Dementia, I don't have any more data on that. I don't know when, why, how, but it stimulates circulation to the brain. I'm not even sure what they meant by dementia because I didn't write anything further down. Leaky gut, well, it opens the gut, but yet it can also be for leaky gut. And that's going to take a burden off the liver, which, see, when your gut leaks, I mean, leaky gut dysbiosis is a known medical fact nowadays. It wasn't known. It was introduced about 1980s, 80 by Brent Davis, a chiropractor. He described it, and after that, it was verified. And leaky gut, there's, I don't want to say holes, but the pores in your guts, which includes going right through the cells, between the cells, either way, can be too porous, and you get lots of, like 1% of your food doesn't get digested in the digestive tract. That last 1% or 0.01%. I mean, if you got 1% in your system, you'd probably be dead, but a very small amount doesn't get broken down, so it leaches in through the pores of the small intestine, at the junctions and the cells to get into the portal vein, going to the liver. Liver's got to break it down. So burden on the liver. And here it is. And other cells, all cells have to break things down, but burden on the liver. Okay, yeah, Natasa Zerek, a Croatian Australian herbalist. Boy, I better not. Maybe she's Slovenian. Well, she's from the former Czechoslovakia. I don't want to insult anybody by linking them to the wrong republic, but she's a great, great practitioner and friend when I was last there many years ago. Horrible, and here's some specific indications from her because she's a well experienced practicing herbalist. Horrible pain in the legs with lack of sleep. Well, that's unique. That makes it a specific symptom. Fresh turmeric is warming, tastes good, sweeter, not so bitter as the dried. Yes, worked for high cholesterol, cut down inflammation, she says, and decreases clotting. Oh, that means it's a good remedy. Well, if there's one thing we've learned about both COVID and uh, the vaccines for COVID is that they increase clotting. So can bring down warfarin levels, she says, decreases clotting, very valuable there, and brings down the sugar level for diabetes. That's a well-known type 2. That's a well-known usage there. All these terrible weird sounds. Can you guys hear all these weird construction sounds? Pipes being pulled and weird voices behind me. No, I hope not. Let me know. I'll change to a different room. Okay. I'm at a friend's in San Francisco right now. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can hear it a bit. It's not too bad. At least we know it's not haunted.
Yeah, right. Okay. I don't think it's haunting. I'm going to go to another room. Okay. Anybody want to add any to that?
Lee was going to add a few things, but you checked off both points, the black pepper and the fats. And Alberto or Lee, do you have anything else to add before we wrap up turmeric?
Let's see. I do. I have one note from Trilby, said LASIK, great herbalist in not Ames, Iowa. Where is she? Cedar Rapids, Iowa. She's got a shop there. Curcuma and bromelain. Okay, well, there's another one of our commercial herbs from Herb Commerce. Used between meals, mid-morning, mid-afternoon, is anti-inflammatory, and she's used this for years with people. Well, bromelain has a digestive enzyme type quality to it, so that makes a great combination. Boy, I can't help but think that this would be something for the vaccine side effects because they use bromelain with nattokinase, which is a soybean extract that thins the blood. Uh, okay, and I mean, you do not want to be on warfarin, or it's going to destroy your liver. You have to have liver tests every week to make sure that your liver enzymes are not being, your liver's not being destroyed. And when my dad got on this, I mean, he just turned yellow. Uh, kind of a sallow, not a bright yellow. I put him on milk thistle for that to try and help his liver. So, but here's another option. Okay, I can't think, I don't have anything else on turmeric. So,
Sounds great to me.
okie doke.
Shall we move on to the next herb?
Yes.
All right, great. And next, let's see. Ginger.
Okay, here we have dried and fresh as well. And I have only used the fresh. I've never used the dried because it's just so hot. It's just obnoxious. And you would not really use it in cooking except in the most minute little pinches, I think. But everybody uses fresh ginger in teas. Well, I guess dried ginger would be in some chai mixes very commonly. And just to go over that, so chai was invented in India to make milk more digestible for the kapha people because I'm a pitta kapha, tend to get allergic reaction to milk and have a hard time digesting it. Or lots of people with the wrong genetics have, well, I won't call them wrong, just with the diegetics not keyed to digesting milk, they need the milk to be maybe heated, denatured, or to have the spices, and maybe that won't even do it. Not everybody can drink milk, cow's milk we're talking about. But at any rate, putting the chai spices in there, the ginger, cinnamon, cardamom, etc., was designed in order to make this more drinkable to kapha, to people with a damp digestion or sensitivity to milk. And ginger would be one of the main things here. And I have to say, personally, I just live off of chai. Nothing makes me feel full except milk or some substitute for milk, but I can't eat all those substitutes, drink all those either. And I prefer goat milk when I can get it. Okay, so fresh ginger, we put it in soups. We buy it at the supermarket. You can grow it. You can grow the turmeric too. It treats Chinese medicine is more what I've relied upon. It treats exterior cold, dampness, and tension. That means the pores are not secreting correctly. They may be it may be too chilled and cold, and your pores are closed, or it may be that they're open and secreting more freely, or it may be that you're chilled and the pores, the fluids are caught and not able to come out, making you damper and more chilly yet because the water is cold. So, and it's used for people who feel cool, too cold, and or feel cold penetrates them very easily. And it could be used in soups or teas. It settles vomiting and retching and has that direct effect, and that's tension there in the stomach. So ginger has one property different from turmeric, I believe, in that it is more tension reducing. And one would not really expect that from its taste or heating, warming properties. It doesn't really have the acrid taste, which is not a taste we like. And acridity really settles spasm, but because it's so warming, it takes tension out of the stomach. Stagnation of water is a traditional indication for it. So a damp digestion indeed. Okay, and it is seldom used by itself and mostly used in combination with food or other herbs like in chai. And I would quote here, if you want to get this is in the reading. So Huang, 50 medicinals. He's like a tremendous Chinese herbalist. So Australian herbalist again. Okay. Anybody have any comments there on just general on the use of ginger, fresh ginger? My
Yeah, I find it quite diffusive, and
Oh,
it has like that property that depending on what the body needs, it either helps to dissipate or helps to move fluids and just kind of spread them out so that they're not concentrated. And I think that's why it helps with nausea, for example. And while at the same time, the pungent taste helping with digestion and warming, of course.
mhm.
And to bring in some of the etymology, the word zingiber comes from the Sanskrit word shringavera, meaning shaped like a horn. So shring meaning horn and vira meaning body. And we can see here in the picture, in the images that we have up, the stalks that are coming out from the rhizome do look like horns, and so does the flower. So very appropriate name.
Mm. Yeah. Yes. So that diffusing the dampness and the tension from the stomach all the way out to the skin, in a sense. That's what a diffusive does. And yes, does increase peripheral circulation. But I think diffusive is almost a better term for it. Yeah. Um, let's see. So Kim Dudley had some fairly unique applications. He's a great herbalist that died who was in Canberra, grandfather of all those good herbalists down there. I never found so many good herbalists in any one place as Canberra, I've got to say, partly due to him and Dorothy Hall before him. I hope that's still the case. There's still quite a few of my friends there, and I just, you can find them. And there, I hope that herb store is still open, the Hierophant, which Kim Dudley founded. Okay, so he's considered ginger dried, to be a remedy for peripheral vascular distension. That would be where there's stagnation of the blood in the periphery, and that's fitting. It's going to make it colder too. This led him to use it primarily as a cardiovascular remedy. It's not usually used that way. Atherosclerosis was his primary use. With arteriosclerosis obliterans, that would be really damaging to the vasculature. Ischemic heart disease and angina as secondary use as well. Well, that's quite a bit different from most Western herbalists and even what we read in Chinese medicine here. So increasing the tone of the blood vessels, causing that diffusion and that peripheral increase in circulation. So very, very interesting. The mental indication from him is insecurity. Don't know anybody else who gave that. Excessive saliva and sputum. Well, if you got a wet stomach, you are going to have a wet mouth, most likely. Excessive saliva and sputum without thirst. Tongue coating is white, thick, slimy, or white, glossy, as if a layer of mucus is on top. Boy, that's useful. That's from Huang Huang. All these are from Huang Huang. Okay, so when you have water, the coating tends to be more white. We're going to have a class on tongue evaluation in a couple months. But so wet and then quite a bit of coating there. Okay. Respiratory copious, clear, transparent, or foamy mucus. Woo. That was the dried herb, Huang Huang again. Because you're trying to get it really, the dried is going to be a little bit better for drying up that dampness there. Coughing and panting. That's interesting. That's lack of air. That's like hypoxia. Wow, this would have helped in COVID, it sounds like. Cough, dried pepper with, well, they used wild ginger. That's kind of toxic, but if you're good with wild ginger, and Shazandra. Cardiovascular, we already have that. Gastrointestinal, well, this is its major uses. I went through all that, and this is where it actually is commonly used all over the world. So it's good for gastric ulceration, increasing the blood supply again to get rid of the poor circulation, causing poor health in the wall of the stomach, and that causes breakdown of the tissue. And I should say that in European medicine, at least a generation ago, at least when I was younger and talked to European doctors, it was well known that and it may still be that stomach ulceration was often followed 3, 4, 5 years later by cancer of the stomach. So if you have these symptoms, you want to get rid of that because you have a weak stomach membrane and you're going to start to have a mutation of the cells in there. And even though ginger isn't a known anti-mutagenic, I don't believe, it can help by getting rid of the previous tissue state before that breaks down. Kim used dried ginger. I guess I am doing dried ginger as well as fresh. Dried ginger with astragalus for stimulating the circulation of the stomach. That's an interesting formula. And he likened it to using cayenne to stimulate circulation. That's also used to get rid of that gastric ulceration. And we Western herbalists would tend to use golden seal powder for that. It said it kills the Heliobacter pylori, but really doesn't just kill the bacteria. It increases the motility, that cell movement and cell health in the stomach. So these are all heating remedies, good for the stomach. It's interesting that didn't come up under turmeric quite as much. It was more intestinal. But certainly if you didn't have anything else for a while, you could use that, start out with that. But it seems that this is more recorded under ginger. Water accumulations, vomiting and retching, diarrhea and coldness of the extremities, vexation and agitation, abdominal pain, chest pain and lumbar pain. This is from Huang Huang again, dried ginger. But diarrhea, vomiting, retching, coughing with clear, watery sputum, faint pulse and cold limbs. Again, there's watery, watery, watery. He gives the pulse there. Inappropriate use of purgatives resulting in gripping, cramps, and watery diarrhea. Now, very often, so purgatives are often given with ginger, actually, in Western herbalism, this is to prevent gripping or spasms when they gave the rhubarb root or, God forbid, senna or cascara sagrada, some strong purgative, they had to give ginger as a secondary. Abdominal fullness and pain. Okay, and it is known, it's been tested and used for motion sickness, like in a boat. And there the candied ginger is used, and boy, that's a nice, tasty substance. Candied ginger. Okay. All right. So it can be metrorrhagia, that's intermenstrual bleeding, and that could be from, and also cramping, again, because it's warming and relaxes the muscles and increases the flow and gets rid of water, etc. Okay, Kim used it in diabetes mellitus, that would be zone 2, type 2. Musculoskeletal, we're getting to symptoms similar to how it was used, how turmeric was used. Again, rheumatism, dried ginger. Most of these are dried ginger indications. Arthritis, internal dried ginger and cinnamon and honey, a traditional Kurdish remedy. Oh, that would be from one of my Australian students, Glenda Croft. Flat feet, dried ginger. I don't know how you treat that, but there it is. Cold, achy pain in lumbar region and joints. Geez, I have that my whole life. Maybe external application. I don't think my digestion is quite this watery, but maybe I should try it. Okie doke. That's what I have. And oh, no wonder. This is all dried ginger I was reading from. And I also have an account of fresh ginger. Somehow it got switched from one to another. Yeah, okay, that was actually dried ginger. Well, fresh ginger, warming to the extremities, assist cardiac herbs, motion sickness. there. It's in the nice candy ginger, which is not so penetratingly hot. Stomach pain with palpitations. Fresh ginger. Gee, I'm sorry, I mixed that up. Stomach deficiency, fresh ginger, nausea, vomiting, retching, often accompanied by profuse amounts of thin drool in the mouth, spitting out clear water, a lack of thirst, and yeah, you're not going to be thirsty. And borborygmus, that's lots of gas. Thunderous rolling in the abdomen, rumbling. Huang huang, fresh ginger. Okay. Taken during menses to relax the muscles, increase the flow. So same use for fresh and dried. Muscle spasms externally, fresh ginger and rubbing alcohol. Oh, cool. That's kind of formula I like. And even transferred into the rubbing alcohol, there's going to be differences between the fresh and the dried. Okay, there's paper. I give the source here. Ginger extract inhibits biofilm formation by Pseudomonas ceruginosa. And it gives the PubMed address there. That's pretty important to get rid of biofilms. Wherever you get biofilms, bacteria start to settle in. So, yeah.
I've heard of people taking the tea, the decoction regularly. I'm getting feedback somewhere. Who else has their mic on? Or just Matt? Oh, that's better. Yeah, I've heard of people just, keeping a teapot of hot water going and a few slices of the ginger and keep pouring the hot water over it. So, I mean, because it can get pretty strong. So you don't need too much ginger. But I've heard of people taking that regularly throughout, say the cold and flu season of all degrees, and even adding some honey to that. And whether they feel that they're suffering from a cold or flu or just want to use it as a preventative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, plus that would be good for someone with a damp stomach and the damp tongue and living in a damp climate as well. Damp, cold. Yeah. So, yeah.
Reminds me of ginger tea or ginger root beer. Like, have you ever had like homemade or freshly made? It's even better than ginger ale. I mean, it's just
Oh, wow.
My mouth is watering. Anyone else craving curry at this point? Wait until we get to garlic. Now, then you'll really be craving curry. Who's coconut based? I love coconut based curry. Or you like all types?
All of them.
Yeah, I do like the coconut too. Yeah, this does remind me. I was on a plane from Australia to the U.S., San Francisco or L.A., and I had an upset stomach, and I just asked for ginger ale. It really does work. So for stomach spasm, etc.
It truly, truly does. Even the soda version, it's incredible.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that's that diffusive quality of ginger that really comes through, and I've used it quite a bit as well for respiratory conditions, especially in combination with onion, like an onion and ginger poultice on the chest to help with spasmus, coughs, and mucus that's kind of stuck in there. Helps to relieve the spasming cough, and at the same time to loosen up the mucus that's stuck at the in the depths of the lungs. And also, I think it combines well with great with honey, and with elderberry. I do put it in my elderberry syrup. I make it with a decoction of ginger, and you can find that recipe at the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism, with ginger, thyme, which we're also going to talk about, and honey, of course.
Alberto has a number of amazing recipes at the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism, so absolutely check those out. So if you love cooking with herbs and want to learn while you're cooking with them, definitely check out those recipes at the Institute. Definitely, that's my favorite way to use ginger is in cooking. We've mentioned curries a number of times. That's my I I guess I don't really even know how to use ginger otherwise because it's just like it worked great in curry. I'm just gonna go with that. Ginger cookies, of course, that is, you don't need much of the powdered form, but hands down, love that as well. I mean, just all the good old-fashioned ginger ale, I'll take that too.
I've used it in a bath. It was a recommendation, dried, so
Oh
yes,
my,
it's a precautionary tale. It was,
yes.
do you want to get a sweat going? And honestly, if you were to isolate it to a foot bath or a hand bath, that'd be great. But as a whole bath, just to let you know, that diffusive property certainly is in full effect. But I sweat, and that was my goal. I got out, it wasn't for long, but I was just sweating. And so, yeah, I mean, it certainly was effective, but yep, you can use it topically. But yeah, buyer beware. You might want to isolate the parts you want to work on, but it's, yeah, definitely very warming and a good way to like basically build your own sauna without a sauna.
Oh,
Um, and I think like I'm gonna put the little tidbit in there, like the middle picture that's showing. I like this picture because it's like the heat is being drawn out from like the intestines or the joints. Has that inflammatory look where it's just kind of being pulled or drawn out, and that's kind of what happened. It opens up the pores and lets it all out.
I do got to give one. There's one problem with the bath with dried ginger that I've heard from one woman at least, but I believe it's more. That's extreme vaginal irritation from the ginger. So I don't know, that can happen.
Yep, that was a precaution. It was a nutritionist that told me. She's like, "Yep, you just have to. Some people are more sensitive than others if you decide to do that, but yeah. So go at your own comfort level, or like just soak like like a foot soak or something like that would be very beneficial to get the circulation going. But yes, it can be that way as well."
That's great. We have Marnie chiming in on YouTube saying that she's uses it after surgery for nausea, but she says
Oh,
get
wow.
the real stuff, and she said it works better than what they give you. A shot of compazine. I don't know.
Wow.
She's not sure of the spelling, and I'm not sure of the pronunciation, but hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Marnie. I believe that was, and that reminds me of the research on the seasickness and travel sickness, that it works better than the regular drugs. It's been tested against them, and it works better. So, yeah. And nowadays you can get. I've seen it in grocery stores. I mean, in supermarkets, so you can get it. Yeah, candied for that purpose. Well, should we move on to garlic?
Sounds good. Anyone else have anything to add? Great. Let's move on.
Does anybody know? I know that this was most anciently used, I believe, in Mesopotamia, maybe in Egypt. So it's Fertile Crescent, ancient remedy. I don't know if that's where it originated. I mean, we're dealing with a plant that was used like really 10,000 years ago, because remember those ancient settlements in Turkey, the very, very earliest little villages? I can't pronounce the Turkish name, but there's one or two of them known, and they found a gourd, I think it was, unless it was a ceramic pot, might have been, that had uh, garlic or garlic extract they made some way, and propolis. It's like, talk about an antibiotic. Holy cow. I mean, that's probably about up there with a lot of our modern antibiotics. I mean, that's really powerful. And that is not like Matt Wood small dose herbalism. That's like a large dose. But yeah, what are you going to do? You got somebody with some infection, and you're in a little village. There probably isn't a great doctor. You need something that works for 90% of the time, 90% of the people, etc. So Well, we're just going to have to put up with that background noise if you can hear it. All sorts of little tappings and sawings. So it's been used an awful long time. And then it's in things like the Code of Hammurabi. I can't remember if that's pro or against garlic, because some cultures didn't like it because it did make you smell. Other cultures like preserved it, like there was penalties for abusing it and stuff. So it was a valuable remedy from an early time. Do you know much about the history, Alberto, or anybody else?
In terms of where it originated, I think there's debate, but because it's been cultivated for so long that it's hard to trace back. But apparently, the only place where it grows, where Allium sativum grows wild today, is in Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan.
Wow.
So, yeah, it still grows wild there. So likely in that area, which is, I believe, northeastern Turkey, is touching up on those countries. And in terms of some of the cultures that embraced it, definitely the Romanian culture embraced garlic. And they do have, on the eve of November 29th through 30th, this is the date where winters begins for them, and it is also the eve of Saint Andrew, the patron saint of and protector of Romania. And so they have many a festival essentially, and many traditions involving and revolving around garlic. Lots of food in the garlic, and garlic is believed to keep them safe from strigoi and moroi, which are evil spirits that come to haunt the living. And furthermore, the Romania is where the original Dracula comes from.
Yeah, right.
With Vlad the Impaler, as he was also known. And of course, garlic is repels vampires, as most of us know today. So that's an interesting. And then, back to the doctrine of signatures, the cloves look like teeth, so like a protection. And I can add as well that the Old English word garlac, what is where our English word today garlic comes from, and gar meant spear, and lac meaning leek, so shaped or a spear shaped leek. And so again, we have that mention of a spear, which is synonymous with protection, defense, and as you were saying, it is an antibiotic, it is antimicrobial, antibacterial, antifungal, and so it's even in the name.
Yeah, and probably antiparasitic too. Yeah. Okay, so we have this extremely ancient usage of it, and one of the interesting things about garlic is that however you use it, the properties are changed. Like, the compounds, it's kind of high strung when it comes to, like, you crush the garlic clove and already you're changing the chemistry, which most plants it wouldn't change it just to crush a part of the plant. But with garlic, the properties are changed on heating, from aging, from fermentation, from well, I don't know that anybody's ever cooled it off, but that might change it too. And from crushing, and from probably even combining with other food, et cetera, external use, internal use. So it has a lot of variation that way. And that's one reason I don't feel I'm completely up to the most recent, everything that could be said about this plant. And again, and this is another one, it can be used in a very general way as an antibiotic or as a warming agent. Or it can be used kind of specifically. I do have specific indications on it, but they don't come up very much, and I know exactly when to use it when those appear, though. But that's how that's rarely used that way. Okay, so Western herbalists do use it, as well as it's in herb commerce, and everybody uses it. And a common thing is to put it on the feet to bring down high fever. Put oil on before putting it on the feet. Also, that can be used for pneumonia and chest congestion. And it contains a lot of sulfur compounds, by the way, and sulfur gets things kicked up and moving. Sulfur is kind of in homeopathy, it's the great stirrer. It stirs the constitution up. And in biochemistry, I would say, if I thought of one thing about it, it's the source of all the sulfates, which are just totally extremely important part of biochemistry. Not so much in the some in the electrolytes, but especially in the makeup of the matrix and the connective tissue all depend on sulfates. Chondroitin sulfate, laminin sulfate, elastin sulfate. The basic extracellular matrix polymer hyaluronan is not a sulfate, but all the rest of them are, and it's just ubiquitous to the body. And it, well, so at any rate, we don't want to get in sulfate so much. Sulfur. Okay, so stir things up, get things moving. Remember, you plunge sulfur underwater and it explodes into fire. So, wow, it can draw oxygen out of H2O. So it's very dynamic. Well, that's if nothing else, there's a lot of sulfur in garlic. Okay, so we have this use of garlic, and we have different ways. So in the West, it's one thing it does, it contains nitric oxide, which is the basic substance used by the body to dilate the vasculature, the arteries. And by dilating the arteries, you lower blood pressure. So this is like a drug that lowers blood pressure. In fact, I don't know why they don't have a nitric oxide drug. They got all these other terrible ones. But at any rate, it's very reliable, but it has to be used every day like a drug. Well, then you'd smell. Okay, so first they worked out putting parsley in with garlic, because parsley takes the odor off your breath, especially for putrefaction and things. Okay, so that's cool, but maybe that helps some. And then they finally came up with deodorized garlic made in Japan. There's a product, Kyolic. Maybe we don't want to advertise the brand, but they have a patented method. So they take the smell out, and you can get the extract and you won't smell, and it will reduce your blood pressure. Okay, then, so things are coming along through Western herbalism. Certainly, just plain eating it for all those digestive, antimicrobial, anti-putrefactive, anti-parasitic, etc. Okay, so particularly it seems like our traditions emphasize the mucosa, the mucous linings of the intestines and the lungs. So it's used much for the lungs and for gastrointestinal problems. It's not used for stomach ulcers, to my knowledge. Maybe if you had nothing else. Okay, so mucosa, but then it has this blood vessel, and it has some additional uses we'll get to in a moment here. All right, my specific indication is when there's coughing centered on the bifurcation of the tubes. Oops, that's like right about here. That's where COVID attacks me. The bifurcation of the tubes, like the trachea goes down and then boom, outwards. And then we have so and there's kind of a hollowness there, and the mucus is nice and impacted onto the bronchial tubes and the trachea. So impacted mucus, made into plaque in a sense, and it secretes and gets water in there and gets that moving up and going. So I could go deeper and deeper into the lungs and might work with some of the remedy that acts more on the pleura, or excuse me, well, that would be true too, the pleura, but I was thinking of the alveoli, things that help right in the small tissues, and pleurisy root, for instance, helps in the pleura, guess what, from its name, and in the alveoli. There's another herb that helps in the alveoli. If you have green mucus all built up in there from an old infection, L-campaign would combine very well with garlic, but boy, would that taste bad. Okay, so there's general uses. Now, there's very many different preparations and things. Like I said, just cooking it and just all sorts of things is going to change it. Well, so after World War II, the U.S. Army occupied Japan, and the people were starving, and they, how nice, they didn't want to kill them all. They brought in a Dr. Schnell to rebuild Japan's pharmaceutical industry, which was not bad before the war. And fortunately, he was from Germany, so he knew to, boy, rings under my eyes. I've been sick a little bit of late. He knew to being a German, he was also into herbal medicine as well, and they already had garlic, but he really worked with garlic. And garlic, I mean, kyolic comes from Japan. The Japanese know more about how to tweak garlic one way or another than anybody else. So his teachings came to root there and became really important. And one of them is the use of aged garlic, which is garlic that has been aged in stainless steel nowadays, but I'm sure it was originally oak barrels or something. And it's for up to over 20 months. Yeah, and it converts the aromatic ingredients into water-soluble and odorless compounds. So that's aged garlic extract. Okay, so this changes. I got to read here from this little booklet by a friend of mine, Rowan Hamilton. I don't know if he's still with us, but he's a NIM herbalist from England. He was in Canada for a while. Okay, so it produces new health-promoting compounds not found in the original bulb when we just chomp on it or even press it out or cook with it. S-allyl cysteine and S-allyl mercaptocystine. Okay, now allyl, that's the sulfur compound, so it still has the sulfur, yay! But now it has cysteine in it, I'm getting a little tired here, I guess. Amino acid, and it has, which has been researched for potential in preventing and treating heart disease and cancer, among other conditions. Okay, the raw garlic has the sulfur compounds, but so does this aged, and yes, highly sensitive to processing. Heat destroys many of its benefits. However, slowly aging without heat, these volatile agents are transformed into dozens of concentrated, valuable, stable, safe, and odorless constituents, of which the allylcysteine is only one. So, homocysteine, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, let's see. Is that's not fully metabolized amino acids, and that gets in the kidneys and is bad there. This helps with the metabolism of those amino acids, and it helps preserve LDLs. That's the low density lipoproteins that break down easily and cause the trouble with the arteries where you use statin drugs. Statin drugs do not lengthen your life, even according to the original Framingham study. There's a lot of criticism in the alternative community of statin drugs. Now, if you have really, really high cholesterol, you might want to consider that. But for a long time use, well, anyways, there's a free type, red yeast, not red shiso, red yeast, which is available for those of you too poor to afford the statin drugs. And one of my sister's friends, I knew him too. He just had a heart vascular problem from a young age. He finally died in his 40s, but the doctor said, you need statin drugs. And he said, hey, I'm living on the edge of poverty. I'm an artist. I'm living on the edge of poverty. And so he said, well, you got red yeast. So he took that, but he lived another 5 years. So, it didn't cure. But using that to help get rid of cholesterol. Well, this is a aged garlic plus many other things that it does. It's an antioxidant, so it's going to get rid of the free radical scavengers, which are inflaming things all the time. And again, this is a warming antioxidant. Another research paper confirmed the ability of S-allylcysteine to block LDL oxidation and reduce LDL-induced cell damage, which is in the vascular tissue, which produces high blood pressure, which produces heart disease. Okay. It increases the activity of other antioxidants. Yay. Wow. Yeah. Oil-soluble constituents. Not always present in the aged garlic extract. Reduce cholesterol through their cytotoxicity. So that's a different method of reducing cholesterol. And that's the use of the fresh plant, because the aged does not preserve those. Those would be called fixed oils instead of aromatic oils. Water-soluble sulfur compounds predominate by comparison in the aged garlic extract. So we have two major differences there. Okay. Geez, even heat-treated preparation. So they did treat it with heat, found to increase capillary circulation. That's working on the vasculature in a different way. Headaches, dizziness, vertigo, tiredness, lower backache. Okay. Just so many different uses. It's really hard to get at all of garlic's uses from even just one product or one preparation method. Okay. All right. Anybody else have information to share about garlic?
Well, yeah, I was thinking about it and how penetrating it is. And when Alberto mentioned the gar and the spear about the scapes and everything, I'm like, this is so scorpionic. And then you mentioned sulfur and how it kicks everything up. And Culpeper does assign its rulership to Mars, which is the traditional ruler of Scorpio. So just bringing up all the things, cleaning house.
Yeah, right. Huh. Yeah, what does Culpeper say about? Let's see, I'm gonna look that up. Anybody else on have any experience, notes, anything on garlic? You must have used it for just plain acute conditions here. So
I did Phyllis's thing where when our household was coming down with stuff, we did the butter bread and raw garlic. And I mean, you got used to the potency after a while. Even it was just like, this is like how are we going to do this? And it's like you just kind of got acclimated to it, to the point where we were kind of craving it.
Wow. So we being you and your son there.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you can get a teenage boy to eat it, then that's quite something.
Yep.
Yeah, I like to prepare when a cold is coming on, or even when you do have a cold. I like to prepare it by chopping it real small, like just one clove, and then mix it in a shot glass with honey and fresh squeezed lemon juice, and then just shoot it. So you don't have to chew it, but then you're getting all the benefits.
Uh, uh,
I kind of like to chew it. That was another one of Phyllis's too. She's like, everyone would chew it. I'm like, actually, it's kind of good. It's that sweet, salty, pungent heat. Yeah.
I think that's one of the things, though, if you do it in your household, you have to it's all or nothing. Everybody does it, or no one, or one person, and they get sequestered, or they're at the door fending off the vampires.
Well, yeah, because it stays in the lungs too. Like that's
Yeah.
one of those things like you're gonna stink, you're gonna smell like it because you just sweat it out. And it has that awesome lung signature too. The cloves, when you cut it down the middle, you can definitely see like the lung picture right there too.
Yeah, and if you look at the flower as well, it almost looks like the end of the alveoli in terms of the doctrine of signatures. And
Oh.
that's where oxygen exchange happens, and oxygen gets infused into the blood, and carbon dioxide gets exchanged into the lungs and exhaled out.
Well, let's see what Culpepper himself says. The offensiveness of, there's a new signature, the offensiveness of the breath of him that hath eaten garlic will lead you by the nose to the knowledge hereof. And how to use it, mainly in the lungs and the respiratory. So that's interesting. This was anciently accounted the poor man's treacle. Treacle being a remedy for all diseases and hurts. And in fact, wow, that goes back to that pot in Turkey. It's provoketh urine, he says, women's courses, helpeth the biting of a mad dog and other venomous creatures. I wouldn't swear to that, but that's what he says. The worms in children cutteth and avoideth tough fibrous phlegm in the head. Again, so it's moistening. It's moistening the phlegm. Helpeth the lethargy, exhaustion, and is a good preservative against a remedy for any plague, sore, or foul ulcer. So it's used. Oh, that's good. External ulcer, taking away spots and blemishes in the skin, easeth pains of the ears, ripeneth. Yes, the clove is even put in the ears, and the oil is mixed with St. John's wort and mullein as an ear oil. It ripeneth and breaketh imposthumes or other swellings or problems. So that would mean swollen glands probably, but also you're being put in the ears. All of these diseases, the onion, are also effectual. Yet taking half an onion, putting it to the ear under a piece of cloth. Oh, so direct application of the garlic or the onion, you should put some sort of oil over the tissue or whatnot, or put it in oil. It has some more peculiar virtues besides the former vis. It hath a special quality to discuss. That means to diffuse the inconveniences coming by corrupt augs or mineral vapors, whatever that is, or by drinking corrupt and stinking waters. So inconveniences would include diarrhea. Sometimes this is like he's hiding what he's saying a little bit, not necessarily intentioning. Wow, he even used it for taking wolfbane. That's deadly. Do not eat wolfbane, aconite, henbane, hemlock. Wow. Yeah, never eat any of those plants. I guess he says garlic is a antidote, but I sure wouldn't want to experiment with that. My author, he's quoting from somebody, quotes here many diseases that it is good for, but conceals its vices. Its heat is very vehement, and all vehement hot things send up their ill-favored vapors to the brain in choleric men. So it makes people angry, then is what he's saying. 'Twill add fuel to the fire in men oppressed by melancholy. 'Twill attenuate the humor and send up strange fancies and strange visions. Wow, sounds fun. To the head, Therefore, let it be taken inwardly with great moderation. Outwardly, you may make more bold with it. Mars owns the herb. Well, that's really interesting for mental indications, making the choleric person more angry and making the melancholic more fanciful. Now, I can't swear to that because I don't know. Hopefully, he's not misleading us. He knew he was quite a good herbalist. All right. Anything else we want to say about this before we move on?
Yeah, I'll add one more thing, and I think this is maybe an example of what so many herbs are good at, and especially with its antibacterial, antimicrobial, antifungal properties. Garlic does not indiscriminately kill all bacteria in the stomach or in the intestines, in the microbiome. So it while it can help to remove some of these pathogenic microorganisms, it also helps to promote the health of the microbiome, and it doesn't just
Yeah.
nuke everything the way that antibiotics do.
Yeah.
So a more holistic kind of application.
Who was it that was, we just said, this is pretty amazing. We just said that ginger it was that would, unless it was turmeric, I think it was ginger that would break up biofilms. It's like, wow, that would go well with garlic for totally redoing the gut biome. So, plus some bifida or lactobacillus.
Sounds like some hope for those with SIBO.
Yeah, right. Yeah, actually, yeah, it does sound very good. All right, should we go on?
Maybe Alberto, would you share a little bit of what you shared in Herbs and Spanglish about the component allicin?
Sure. Well, allicin is the main, although there's many, of course, constituents in garlic. Allicin is, let's say, the champion constituent and the one that has been researched the most. I would hesitate as an herbalist to say that it's the only one, because we know plants are so complex that we do not fully understand them or comprehend them. But allicin does seem to be at the center stage here, and it does seem to be more present in fresh garlic, and especially when the garlic is crushed versus chopped. So if you can handle chewing on the garlic, that's the best way to consume it if you are going to use it in the context of helping to prevent an oncoming cold, or maybe you already have a cold. Chewing the garlic, crushing it first maybe, but then chewing it rather than chopping it would be best. And then, yeah, as Matthew mentioned, of course, the sulfur also has that drawing out action to help remove unwanted substances from the body.
That's where I think the Caesar salad is so beautiful. I don't chop the garlic, but I have like a mincer crusher. And so you get kind of both the mincing action and the crushing, chewing action. And I've been known to make a pretty strong Caesar salad, garlic wise, but I think it's amazing. And it definitely is probably one of the best ways you can get fresh garlic, especially. And then you get good components of the allicin as well.
Yeah, this is just showing so many different preparation methods with this herb. It's hard to find anything else that's quite like this. We'll try to gather this up. I guess all of us should contribute to a paper. There's just so much information that's needed as background here. Okay, so that'll take a couple weeks. Sorry, folks, but...
It's all a work in progress, that's for sure. Did you want to tackle thyme?
Yeah, I'm wearing out a little bit. So let's see. Lee was given a really nice description of what it is like in the garden and some signatures. So take over there. Lee.
Okay. Yeah, so and I've grown thyme, and the only way I'm successful here in Minnesota is if I prop it up on some rocks, and I can usually get it to come back. And I learned that I well, in one of Matthew's classes, I think by Matthew himself too. But yeah, it prefers the hot and the dry. In anthroposophical thought, which is born out of Rudolf Steiner's teachings, he thinks of the Lamiaceae or the mint family as very much a solar herb or a warm herb, and they tend to be very warming. The bees love them. There's a lot of them gravitate towards the sunshine. There's a few herbs that are more wet and damp, but the mints tend to want to they want to be almost like animals. And plants will want to grow vertically and stretch up towards the sun. You got a lot of mints that like to sprawl and grow horizontal, and that's our territory. That's what humans do. We walk around horizontally on the earth. We go this way, and plants go this way. So they're very much connected to people and humans, and to the warmth, and they get that through spreading. So thyme is a very hot herb. And it's just very, very warming. Anyone that smells it, the volatile oils too are very much related to the properties of fire and warmth. So just smelling it, being around it, seeing how it grows, and seeing who it gravitates towards and likes. Yeah, hot, dry. So yeah, that's thyme.
Yeah, and my friend Kathy Skipper, who lived and taught in France for a long, long time, says in its southern homeland, thyme is extremely heating. So, yeah, so we want to try and get it up on the rock to make it more exposed to the sun and less to the soil and get it as hot as we can in our northern climates. We also have a better time growing lemon thyme than any other thyme, and that's a kind of a cooler time, and maybe it's even cooling. I don't know, but so we're at a disadvantage growing thyme up in Minnesota and Wisconsin, where Lee and I live, and Ontario, you might do better there, Alberto. So, yeah. Okay, so that's thyme, and you pointed out a great signature. It looks kind of like fingers as it's spreading there, and strangely, and I said, "Oh, Lee, yeah, oh, good," because I've used it. I only found one specific symptom for its use, and that is dryness between the fingers. When there's dryness between the fingers, not other parts of the hand, this is a remedy. When there's dryness in this part of the hand, up to there even, that's hawthorn. If I haven't mentioned that in other classes, well, it's 'cause I haven't seen it for a while, but that's very marked, whereas this has dryness down here. And except between the fingers more. Very marked. So, eczema remedy, dryness of the skin. It can also be used in fever to promote secretions. When the skin is too dry, it actually does promote the oily secretion, the sebaceous secretion, as well as the water. In fact, I really only know for sure that it causes the secretion of the oily, and it may be I see. It's drying to water increases oil. That's very typical. Sage does that. Angelica does that. A lot of plants will be drying to water and increasing to oil. So here's another herb that does that. And if the skin is dry and giving you trouble, think on thyme. And otherwise, it is a digestive aid and it could be used in food, of course. It's a general tonic. Tea for digestion, but it can be put in food. Dries out the damp, so it has a property a little bit similar to, what was that, the damp stomach with ginger dried. Yeah, it's antimicrobial and therefore used for acute remedy. The essential oil is extracted, and that's extremely irritating to the skin, so it has some affinity to the skin. You do not apply it full strength. thyme oil to the skin. Thyme oil, however, is the active ingredient in, guess what? In, let's see, what's that product? Listerine mouthwash. You look at the label, it's always been thyme. Thyme, very stimulating, so we could call that an herbal remedy. You swish it around, it's very stimulating to the gums, increases blood supply there, health. It's not an unhealthy substance to have in your mouth to be exposed to. You could make your own, however, but there it is. So starting with the mouth on getting secretions, get healthier secretions in the stomach, the intestine. So it's analogous to the other herbs as well. And then acting on the skin. And what was that? It was ginger that did the same thing, that acted on the stomach and the skin. So, friends, you guys take over.
Well, I have to credit you. You're the one that actually tuned me into, or tuned me into the finger signature. And just, I mean, not only does it look like, okay, maybe maybe it's magical like that.
Well, maybe it gives you memories. Yeah, because I didn't actually mention growing that on a rock, although I've learned that. I think that came up from a student in some class or other is more likely. I don't remember teaching that. But yeah, grow it on a rock or on rocky places.
Yeah, it likes that. Yeah, there's an affinity towards the throat in here too. A lot of the mints,
Yeah.
the petals seem to come together to emulate that coughing look, and you see that in just a lot of the mints, but especially in thyme too. And it's definitely people use it for sore throats. Ben Charles Harris too actually says, if you look upside down, it looks like the respiratory system too.
Oh,
So it shows that toward the lungs. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's where it is. It was like hiding in plain sight. I just had to stand on my head. But yeah, it looks like when it gets shrubby and woody, it does take on that more tree-like shape, which is very respiratory-like.
huh. Yeah, right. Okay. I've only used it as a tincture. We use it in food or as a tea. Well, I've used it in food. I mean, to me, if you could only have one herb, in my opinion, like, because I just like Mediterranean kind of Italian seasoning, I would just be thyme, or maybe Monarda, which is sweet, and Monarda has that burning. So this has a lot in common with with savory, summer and winter savory, and with Monarda too, and oregano, that burning hot minty quality there. Okay.
I actually came upon a local variety that grows amazingly from a local herbalist that we know named Luann. And it kind of was gifted when I was I think it was along with pleurisy root. It was kind of already is a good is a ground thyme. And it's done extremely well. It grows very easily and comes back very easily.
Wow.
So I don't know its official name, but that's something if you live in the northern climates to check out. Personally, I've used thyme in essential oils, and it has to be diluted. Like I think Matt said, it's very strong. It's very hot as an essential oil. It is part of the Young Living essential oils recipe for, I'm pretty sure it's part of the raindrop therapy. And I don't know, it's just a beautiful combination. Definitely has helped a number of, preventing ailments. I like using that on occasion, even for muscle aches, and especially if you're not feeling well. I have seen it used or I've heard of it being used, adding it to vinegar, and then on the stems, of course, you don't want to pull off the little leaves because then you'd have quite a mess. But you put it in vinegar, and it adds an extra natural cleansing power to the vinegar, and some like the smell as well. And of course, I mostly in cooking have used it in making varieties of sausages, and I think it's just terrific for that. I think it's just one of those classic herbs used in making and preserving meat. And so it's just, I think, one of those classic spices, as Alberto and I covered in our last Herbs and Spanglish, along with sage and a number of other amazing, especially the Mediterranean herbs. That's mostly how I've used it.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning that, I think Matthew mentioned this already, but emphasizing how it is antiviral, antiseptic, antimicrobial. And, if we go back to the Doctrine of Signatures once again, and we look at the leaves, they're lanceolate leaves, which means they're kind of shaped like a lance. So that's telling us that they're protective, that they are defensive. And if we look into history, it was used, the oldest records mentioning thyme were the Sumerian scripts that mentioned thyme as being an antiseptic. It was also used in ancient Egypt in the embalming process for mummification. So, preserving and cleansing and getting rid of microbes that could otherwise degrade the bodies of those being embalmed or mummified. And in Roman times, thyme was seen as a protector, and it was used to purify spaces by burning it, to purify homes. But it was also seen as a promoter of courage, and soldiers were often given thyme when they were going off to battle, to encourage them or give them courage. And to name a couple more, it was used as well for protection, either by burning or by ingesting during the bubonic plague. And so it's also worth mentioning that it is an expectorant. So as Lee mentioned, it does resemble the lungs, and so we do know that it expectorates. So it helps to expectorate or expulse mucus in the respiratory system, and it's a stimulating expectorant, to be specific, so that it helps to encourage that outward motion of the mucus. And that's why I like to put it in my elderberry syrup, as I mentioned earlier. It kind of combines really well with the antiviral and protective adaptogenic qualities of the elder, the warming properties of the ginger, and of course expectorating of the thyme, to make a really nice formula for helping protect the respiratory system in those cold months.
Anything more we can add? Anybody? I can't.
Well, maybe another time we'll have more about thyme. Matt, if you're done, if you think we'll wrap it up, we can wrap it up here, and just know that we can chat afterwards. I can end the stream and we can chat for a few minutes.
All right.
Is that a wrap?
Yep.
All right. Bye, everybody. And by the way, we have a number of you who are here at the end of this program. This was a recording of the Materia Medica for the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism, one of our classes that we're putting together, one of many, and many over the years. We have a complete first-year program that we're opening up enrollment again here very soon. Check out our kidney bladder class that is starting very soon as well. And if that doesn't sound exciting, maybe you have the inkling or the tinkling of bladder issues, or some other issues you can't track down. You might be, yeah, I got a, oh my God, in the background. It's the end of class. You got to keep things rolling here.
Right.
And, but also the kidney, there are so many issues that can be related back to the kidneys that you just might not be aware of. And so definitely go to the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism and check out the many symptoms you might see as related to the kidneys, which may be energy, related to bones, believe it or not, and joints. Of course, it relates to the bladder, and if you have leaking issues, those are all related. And then right after that, we're starting a series on the female reproductive system. And the kidneys and the female reproductive system especially are actually very related. And so if that seems like, how could that be? These classes are definitely for you. If you're into health and wellness, how can we naturally remedy and help our body with herbs? And it's just a great way to continue your learning. We have great options there, whether you want to dip your toes in to learn, or if you want to go all the way with us in first year program. And we have year 2 coming along very soon as well. And we have lots for you to join in at the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism, including if you heard these talks about, well, it looks like a joint, it looks like fingers, it smells like this, so it might be for that. Those are what we call the doctrine of signatures. And we have a wonderful monthly class with our very own Lee Arnoldy, who's with us today. And you can learn all about that. Actually, she'll be covering thyme this month. And so you'll get to learn lots more about thyme and many, many more previous herbs. We have some amazing things on the horizon coming with the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism. So make sure to check out all that we have available. You can download the free Materia Medica cards. And so this is the latest material by Matthew Wood, even more updated than his books. And you can download those for free at the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism as well. And as always, if you have questions, feel free to contact us at hello@woodherbs.com. We're happy to help you out there. Janelle, you're so welcome. Those of you who chimed in on the chat, thank you. It's always fun to chat with you there. In our classes as well, we have live Q&A, which you get to interact with the teachers and other students, and all questions are addressed there. This was just a free, fun bonus we thought we'd offer to you so you can have a bit of an idea of what some classes are like. And so we welcome you to join us. We often have free class offerings. So check out our homepage, MatthewWoodInstituteOfHerbalism.com, and sign up for the next one. We look forward to seeing you there. Anyone, closing thoughts? Any other fun rhymes anyone wants to come up with? All right, take care, everybody.
Join us for the Doctrine Signatures is this Thursday, so the 25th coming up.
Perfect. Thank you. And I'll end the live stream, but we can chat here behind the scenes.